Hello and good evening. Welcome back to Arsenal Analysed for your very first match preview of the season. And we have saved it for a very, very big game indeed. And I'm joined today by two guests to help discuss all of the important points ahead of the North London derby. Plenty to sink our teeth into for sure. But before I introduce my guests, if you are looking forward to today's show, like always, hit that like button. It lets me know that you enjoy this type of content. And if you're new around here, do not forget to subscribe. So now that we've got that bit out of the way, let me introduce my guests. Coming to Neil first, someone that you should all recognize by now. He's on pretty much every single show. How are we doing this evening, my friend?
I'm good, bro. At least I try to be on every show. Let's, big talking points today, though. Can't wait.
Good. Yeah, certainly one to look forward to. And a new guest on the channel, someone who hasn't featured before. Hopefully someone who can feature regularly moving forward. Chippy, how are you doing this evening?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Good. Both looking forward to the show?
Yeah.
Sure. Welcome.
Brilliant. Chippy. Right, before we get stuck into some of the questions, for those of you that are watching in the chat, thank you very much for coming along, and do get your questions in for myself and the panel, and try to save your predictions for the end of the show. But more importantly, thank you very much for coming along and spending your evening with us. But let's waste no more time at all and jump into that first question. Neil, I'm going to come to you first with the first question of today's show. What have you made of Arsenal's start to the season compared to Tottenham? And, how do you think it might affect the actual fixture itself?
There's this old saying, form goes out the window once it's a North London derby. In terms of our start versus today's, I feel as if I feel like if we had a slow start. I don't know if it's just me. And I think, we should just come out all guns blazing, AK-47s and all, dropping 10 goals in each match. But that's just something that I guess I would like to probably see from us. But I just think that we had a bit of a slow start. It feels a bit worrying, and I won't go too much into it, because now we know we have all these injuries and whatnot. But yeah, it feels as if we had a bit of a slow start. 3 matches in.
Absolutely. And Chippy, what have you made of Arsenal start, Spurs start? How do you think it might affect the game? Obviously, Neil making a very good point there about form going out the window in these types of fixtures.
I personally, I don't ever compare us to Tottenham. Never have done, never will do. There is no comparison between us. As starts of the season, I think it's been solid. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned with our second half performances at times, although we scored twice against Villa in the second half.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were that good in the second half. I didn't think we were bad in the first half, but the second half we weren't particularly good. Same against Wolves. Brighton can't really say much about because Rice got sent off just at the start of the second half. But it's been a good, solid start to the season. And it's 3 games in. We're unbeaten. You ain't going to win the league in the first 3 games of the season, 5 games of the season. It's going to take some time. As for that lot, who have they beaten? Who have they taken points off of? A really poor Everton side and a side that's been promoted. Yeah. I haven't seen them play this season because I don't particularly want to, but I don't think they've beaten very much. I don't think they've done very much at the start of the season. If you look at the Everton game, there was Everton had from their first team squad, they had 12 or 13 players. They had 12 or 13 players fit. All their subs and everything else were like youth prospects and whatever. So it makes it very, very difficult to pull a team out of that. So, yeah, I think we've been solid. They've been them. And there's not a lot else you can say to it. I mean, they're not. I mean, if we're going to challenge for the league this year, I'm certainly not looking at Tottenham to be one of those teams pushing us. You know?
No, I agree with that.
So it's been solid from us, and I couldn't even tell you how good they are this season because their results are just ordinary for me.
Yeah, and you know, like the pair of you, you know, I don't tend to watch too many, if any, Spurs games unless it is a big game. You know, them playing against maybe one of the top 6 sides. But from what I have seen, yeah, they're not putting up any trees. You make some very good points about the games against Everton and Leicester as well. You know, it's not anything that we necessarily need to be massively worried about. But at the same time, you know, form definitely goes out the window in these fixtures for sure. And Rancid, we will definitely get on to lineups at the end of the show. We'll be sharing our predicted lineups, all 3 of us. I'm sure there'll be differences between them, and also our score predictions. So make sure to get yours in the chat box once we get there in a short while. Now, coming back to you, Chippy, with the next question, with regards to the kind of international break, it kind of follows on from what you said in terms of, you know, Arsenal having had a fairly solid start, Spurs indifferent, if you'd like to call it that. Do you think the international break came at a good or a bad time for either side? Because sometimes, you know, it either stifles that momentum. In other cases, it gives you an opportunity to hit reset if you've not had the start that you maybe wanted.
I'm sorry, but an international break in September is absolutely ludicrous. We shouldn't be having an international break at the start of the season. Do you know what? It's 3 games into the season. Yeah, I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you. If it does anything, it interrupts your coaching and your planning. You know, if you look at, say, Saka and Rice, they're coming back into a North London derby this weekend, and all they've had is a couple of days training with the rest of the squad. And then you've missed out other players, like, you know, that have been away on international duty. They're not, you know, they've not been working up to this game for the past week or whatever. So I just think it's ludicrous. And this early in the season, I don't think momentum really matters or whatever else, because the teams at the top, will be the teams at the top, and the teams at the bottom will be the teams at the bottom. There is not going to be a huge, you know, it's not going to be one of those things where people can't get themselves going. I mean, the other season we lost for the first 2 games of the season. Was it the Brentford and Chelsea, I think? But then we started to pick up, and the international break at that time probably for us helped a little bit. This time, between us and Tottenham, I don't think it really matters.
Fair. Neil, what are your thoughts on this? Do you agree with Chippy? Do you think there might be other elements that we need to factor in when it comes to the international break, either slowing someone down or giving them the opportunity to build momentum?
I mean, you know, Chippy makes a solid point. You know, it all depends on where you are in ascendancy. If you are in ascendancy, how this international break actually affects your run of play in terms of planning for the coaching staff and stuff like that. They would have a set of plans in place. I guess they would have the international break taken into account of those plans. However,
sure,
you know, with as you said, with Rice and Saka coming back into a team who's probably been working on setups and everything going into this game, Saka and Rice is going to come in playing catch up. You know, sure, they're professionals. Sure, they're on tons of wages, which should, you know, put the camera lens on them a lot, because come Sunday, if they have a poor game, you're going to have one half of the fan base saying, well, you know, they're probably tired. They just came off international duty. You're going to have another portion of the fans saying, well, you know, these guys are on big wages. They're professionals. They should be able to just slot in and kick on. So, you know, me personally, I don't think it's serving to any team. it doesn't matter, what team you support. International breaks at this point in the season when it's just starting, maybe 10 games in, have an international break then. But 3 games into the season, it doesn't serve, especially when, you're handed injuries while these guys are on duty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely needs to be looked at, which is a completely separate kind of conversation altogether. And we talked about it, funnily enough, for about 10 minutes before jumping on to today's show. But yeah, lots of question marks over the international break. And I think it seems like we're all in agreement that it's not going to have too much of an effect on this fixture for a number of different reasons. Neil, I'm going to come straight back to you with the next question. Call it tactics, call it something else, is up to you. But what weaknesses can Arsenal look to expose in this Tottenham team? Or how do you expect Arsenal to maybe look to break them down? Considering we're away from home, we're expecting Spurs to, not sit behind the ball. We're expecting them to come at us. Yeah. How can Arsenal expose weaknesses and break them down, in your opinion?
I'm hoping to expose them on the counter. I'm hoping that they come with that nice high line that their coach, I can't really pronounce his name, Ange Pasta something. Yeah, he likes to have this high line type football. I guess this is what he's trying to implement, his philosophy. He's going into his second season at the helm, and hopefully they're still working the kinks out, because then that's where we can exploit. We have to look for where their weaknesses are during the run of play, during when they're trying to string their passes together. You have to identify when and where we can actually expose them. So I'm hoping that we can actually expose them on the counter attack.
Okay, yeah, you make a very good point. As I said, we are probably looking at them coming at us. They're not going to sit behind the ball in a compact, double low block in their own backyard. They like to play attacking football. They like to play a high line. So yeah, absolutely something I could see potentially happening. Chippy, what are your thoughts on where and how we could potentially hurt and break down Tottenham?
Well, I think the big things with Tottenham is set pieces. Proved that last season. They're a little bit vulnerable from set pieces. I think if we're going to attack them, you can't go through the middle. Certainly can't go through the middle, even with their high line, because Van der Ven is so quick.
Very quick, yeah.
He doesn't have to be. He doesn't even have to be a great tackler. Yeah, he's just that quick that he can put players. So I think what we probably would need to do is the same as last year, set pieces, and also using the width and getting at their fullbacks. Yeah. But again, I think that all depends who we play out wide. So, you've got Saka on one side. They'll double up, triple up on Saka. We know that. Yeah. But it's going to be about him finding the spaces that we need to find. And with Odegaard out of the team, I'm a little bit worried about where the creativity comes from in this game. Just a little bit. So
yeah, very good point.
But yeah, I think it will be width out wide on the counter, as Neil said, and making those set pieces count.
Absolutely, yeah. No, very good points.
Yeah, bearing in mind that one of our corner takers is suspended.
Yeah, so yeah, there's lots of question marks, isn't there, with regards to how we're going to set up and how we might break them down, given that we've got suspensions and injuries and God knows whatever else that might come into play. It's gonna be a fascinating battle for sure. Chippy, coming straight back to you. Similar question, really, but in reverse. What do Arsenal need to sort of prepare for? Where could they hurt us?
Midfield, simple as, really. I mean, whoever we play at the back, I think is going to be strong enough because they're good defenders. But do we need to get oxygen masks out and tents for Jorginho and Partey, because they're knocking on a little bit, and they're both in their 30s, and it's a tough one, and they haven't played together very much. You know,
No.
if it's what, you know, not, so I mean, Tottenham could hurt us there. Being honest with you, it's always the same. When it used to be last time I went, it was White Hart Lane, but you know, the crowd at Tottenham can really help a team at times. But yeah, I know. So the crowd, we've got to stay focused. You know, quite often, how many times have Tottenham comes to the Emirates and had a player sent off because they can't handle the pressure? So we need to be focused. True. And we do have the experience there, but you know, we just need to stay focused. So
I completely agree. Arsenal have been guilty of that exact thing in the past.
And if Timber plays, he needs to know what a left back is.
Yeah.
Because he can't keep creeping into midfield because they'll kill us out wide.
They will. It does beg the question, doesn't it, in terms of the role that Arteta is asking him to play, and you feel as though that he's certainly more comfortable inverting from the right, which is where we saw him at the beginning of last season prior to his injury, maybe serving as somewhat more of a makeshift temporary left back option, hence the signing of Calafiori. But yeah, I think a lot of people expect him to start tomorrow. So yeah, some really, really, really good points.
Yeah,
the crowd is sorry, go on.
I think if Calafiori had been fit, there's probably been a good game for him to come into, you know, because he's big, he's mobile, he's aggressive, you know, and I think it's a type of game that would have suited him, and he would have held a little bit more. I mean, then we could have just got White to invert on the other side. We know he can do it. We've seen him do it
he's done it before. He has done it before, and it does feel like Calafiori was building towards his first start, having come off the bench on a couple of occasions now. So really, really, really unfortunate that he's picked up that injury on international break.
I have to be honest, I don't know why we invert on the left. I don't get it, because our wide, whoever plays wide on the left, whether it's Trossard or Martinelli or whatever else, they're not great at tracking back and being defensive, whereas Saka is a bit different on the right, because Saka will track back. You know, he has played fullback. He knows how to defend.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to invert on the right with White than keep going onto the left with players. You know, when you've got a player sitting in front of you who just doesn't track back enough for me.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know why. I'm sure Arteta's got his reasons. Whether or not he'll ever share those is another question altogether. But yeah, you do make a good point. Why we haven't seen it as often on the right compared to the left. So we'll see how that unfolds tomorrow. Neil, before we move on to the next question, anything to add in your opinion in terms of something that you might have noticed where, you know, Spurs could hurt us, or an area that's of concern for you?
Here's my one thing I would ask of the team, and it's like Chippy said, you stay focused. Don't get caught up in the North London derby-ness. Like, stay focused. Like, don't get caught up in that, because we're already weak in the midfield. We don't have our original setup. We want to be able to approach this game with a solid mindset and with a game plan in mind, and kind of want to stick to that game plan. So I don't want us to see us losing our shit and pushing players on the floor and having potential red cards and yellow cards pop out, because you know how lucky we are with these referees. You know, I don't even know who's officiating the game on Sunday.
The guy who refereed us against Wolves and didn't send off the Wolves player for grabbing Kai around the neck. And he was also VAR last year at Villa Park when Havertz equalised after a handball from Matty Cash, and they disallowed the goal.
Yeah.
Yes. Giles.
So,
someone in the chat's just, that's the one. Giles.
Yeah,
so just another point very quickly there is, how's Partey going to be this weekend? Because he's played twice this week for Ghana, and he's had to travel. You know,
it's an interesting one, because we know there have been fitness concerns around Partey, just in general, since he joined Arsenal?
Since he signed.
So before we move into team news, so nice segue there, bringing Partey up and his fitness. But before we do that, there was a question coming in from the chat. A quick fire question, I suppose, really, rather than spending too long on it. And I'm going to add like a bit of a bolt on to this as well. So, Chippy, what are your thoughts on this? Win against Spurs and lose against City, or the other way around? Which one?
You know what I'm going to say? But it beat Tottenham every day of the week, every single day of the week, right? If we beat Tottenham, it really is 3 points game. If we lose against City, it's not going to mean very much because they've got to come to us, and it'll be us two in Liverpool challenging for the title. So if we're going to lose one, it'll be against City. In all honesty, though, I don't think we're going to lose either.
Okay, save that because the additional question I've got is around both those things. And it wasn't a planned question. It's just something that's now sort of come up off the back of this. Neil?
Beat Spurs like a stepchild.
Perfect. I think we're all in agreement then that Spurs is the preferred choice to beat. The question that I wanted to pose to both of you very quickly before we moved into team news, we've got two absolutely massive games coming up, obviously this weekend and next. How important is it for Arsenal to make sure they don't lose either of these games, whether it's 6 points, 4 points, maybe 2 points if it's 2 draws, for example? And, do you think it's going to have a huge impact for the rest of our campaign? Neil, coming to you first this time.
I think it's going to have a bigger impact on the fan base than the team.
We're a very emotional fan base.
Yeah, we as a fan base can come off the hinge a little bit, and we know how important it is to win against these type of teams and these type of fixtures. But I feel like this team has grown quite a bit, has grown another layer of skin, and even if we were to, God forbid, go on and lose these 2 games and get 0 points out of the available 6 that's in front of us, I think we could, really push on and continue on to having a successful season regardless. Okay.
Chippy, your thoughts?
I don't know. I really seriously don't think we're going to lose these games. Odegaard's a big loss this weekend against Tottenham. Is he such a big loss against City? If we play like we did against City last year, he's a creator. He's not a destroyer. Yeah. We won't miss him so much, and we'll have Rice back. This weekend, the game plan will probably be not to lose to start off with, but it will also definitely be this is the game we can win. And I don't think, I know it's an old cliche, but it is one game at a time. And I don't think you can focus on the City game. This game or this weekend is important. If you get 3 points from this game, and then it follows on, you've got a little bit of momentum going into the Tottenham game, into the City game, and it will play totally different in both games. And the big thing this weekend, keep them quiet for the first 20 minutes. They'll come out on the track. They'll come out running at us for the first 15, 20 minutes like they did last season. And it will just be up to us to just keep calm, weather the storm, and then start, just giving them a masterclass.
Absolutely. No, it's nice to see that everyone is really confident ahead of these 2 fixtures. Let's hope that it's reflected on the pitch and in the results come Sunday and next weekend. Now, moving on to team news. Let me just bring up all of the availability, suspensions, you name it, for both teams. So starting with Arsenal, Arteta held his press conference earlier today, and like always, doesn't really give too much away in terms of availability, or tries to shine a more positive light on things, if you will. We know that Moreno is out, so no surprises there. Odegaard, although he sort of said that he might be available, because there's 48 hours between now and the game. Very, very unlikely for anyone who's suffered a sprain before or knows about those types of injuries. You're looking at 4 weeks minimum. I hope I'm wrong. I hope someone's got a magic wand somewhere and they can wave it and make it happen, but I very much doubt it. Tomiyasu still out until the end of the month. Rice suspended, of course, after a red card against Brighton. Jesus has been passed fit as well. Calafiori, late fitness test. And Kieran Tierney, who's also out for a good while yet. So, Chippy, coming to you first with regards to these injuries, suspensions, unavailability. How worried are you about this list ahead of the North London derby?
It's not so much the North London derby that worries me. It's the amount of people on that list who seem to be continually injured. Tony, Jesus, Tierney, Marino, never been injured, and then Gabriel decided to fall on him, which is, Tomiyasu is really quickly becoming. He's almost becoming like Thomas Partey. Him and Jesus, they're the same. How many games are we going to see them play this season? Yeah. How many games? And I spoke a little while ago, and I said that I'm really worried about us going forward. And that's not about just having a centre forward. Who is the replacement for Odegaard? Because the replacement for Odegaard was surely Fabio Vieira, and he's away on loan. So who replaces Odegaard? And it's not as if Odegaard hasn't spoken about not being fully fit when he's playing. So I think it's a little bit frightening. I don't know what Calafiori's injury record is like. I know he had a really bad injury a couple of seasons ago. I hope he's not going to be the same way. But yeah, I mean, Declan Rice can't do nothing about. Referee was absolute wazzock in that game, and so it worries me a little bit, and it always worries me when players. You look at the injuries these players tend to get; they tend to be muscle injuries, which are harder to get over. So
no, very good point.
Little worry going forward, but
Yeah, no, very, 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 very good points, especially around some of the players that seem to be picking up injuries quite regularly ahead of some really key fixtures over the next couple of weekends. And that doesn't even include our trips away from home in the Champions League as well, where having a bigger squad available to rotate is key. Neil, what are your thoughts on the ever-growing list of injuries and reoccurrence of injuries ahead of big games in a chock-a-block schedule?
Yeah, I think, and this is to big up Keith Yates. He always brings this a very, very solid point about the person. Like every person would have some sort of issue where it would be easier for them to injure a hamstring or calf muscle or knee based on their genetics. And he always used to bring up this thing where have we looked into our training grounds? Is the surface too hard? Is it because most of our injuries are muscle injuries, with barring Odegaard's injury on his ankle and Marino being bulldozed by Gabriel. So, what are is it our training facilities that's kind of harboring these injuries that constantly keep happening to our players? Now, with regards to who's on this list, that's a big issue for me as well. They seem to always be present on this list, and quite frankly, I hope the club decides to move on from them sooner than later, because we can't. There's some players that I feel like, as a fan base, we're gonna attach ourselves to, but the players that are on this list all the time, I can't be attached to them, because what have they done for the club itself? In terms of bringing silverware, or winning specific games, or scoring goals, other than Jesus. But even Jesus as well, I like him a lot. But this issue, all of a sudden, as soon as he came to Arsenal, it's like issue after issue with his injury. So I don't know, bro. I feel like it can be deeper than what we'll see on the surface.
Absolutely, and you do make some good points, especially with regards to certain players being moved on, possibly next summer. You'd imagine the likes of maybe Kieran Tierney being moved on in the summer, maybe even Jesus as well. Partey's contract is up, so unless he's offered a new one, he'll be out of the picture, as far as I'm aware, at least.
There's a couple of players on that list. I mean, Tierney will be gone anyway, and he's injured more than Partey, right? But the one player on that list that really worries me, and I don't think we need to care about him, to be honest with you, and I know a lot of people like him, Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu, for me, he's made of glass.
Yeah.
His calf muscle. I mean, I know it says knee injury there, but he has constantly been out with a calf injury over and over and over again. And he was out for 6 weeks with one calf gone. He came back, played 20 minutes, and the other calf went. You know, it's you know,
it is a concern.
Yeah. So they are a concern, and there are players there I think we need to replace them and be a little bit ruthless. And like Neil said, you can't get attached to players. You know, I've been attached. Liam Brady's one of my favourite players of all time, and we ended up selling him. You know, and he was never
horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible when it happens, and I do expect the door to continue to revolve next summer with some of these players that we've just mentioned, and no doubtably a few surprises in there as well. But before we move into the final segment of our show today, which is predictions, including the lineup and scores, just very quickly touching on the unavailability of certain Tottenham players. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. It's a good place to stop and ask that question. Hit that like button if you're enjoying. Subscribe if you're new around here. But Neil, coming to you on this one very quickly. Solanke and Van de Ven have been passed fit, according to news earlier today. Basuma is unlikely, although it does say he will face a late fitness test, and Richarlison is unavailable regardless. So what do you make of this news with regards to Van de Ven and Solanke being available? They're key players for Spurs, and no doubt it would have been a huge help to Arsenal if they were unavailable.
Yeah, before I continue, I'm going to have to hop off in a little bit. I have to head out to pick up my daughter. But with regards to Van de Ven, he has an Achilles heel. He has an Achilles in the sense that his hamstring has bothered him. He gallops like a horse. But the problem with these fast players is that they tend to develop a hamstring problem. And I've seen that. He's come off a few times holding his hamstrings. Not just this season, but last season. So I'm not totally sold on him. He is quite fast, but I'm not 100%. Dominic Solanke, I don't know. He might be the one player to possibly put one in the back of the net for Tottenham against us. He's just that type of player. So with regards to Basuma, again, another one who always has issues. I don't expect him to start for Tottenham. He might be on the bench, but I don't expect much from him. And, we can deal with the chicken Richarlison guy. I don't know.
Well, thankfully he's unavailable, so we don't need to worry about him.
Yeah.
Chippy, what are your thoughts on the confirmation that Solanke and Van de Ven are now available?
Van de Ven, I'm with Neil on this one. He's very, as we said, he's very, very quick. He's so fast. I think he's the fastest player in the Premier, right? But last season when we played them at their place, I didn't think he was great defensively, but he is quick. And when you're quick, you're quick. You can get yourself out of trouble with it. Solanke, I'm going to be honest. I really do expect Saliba just to mark him out of the game. You're talking about probably one of the 2 or 3 best defenders in the world, centre backs in the world. And would you put Solanke in the top 3 in the Premier League as a striker? Possibly not. So I think on that one, and I'm pretty certain the whole defence would have preferred it if Richarlison was playing, because they could have had an easy afternoon.
Absolutely, yeah. And you make a very good point actually about Solanke versus Saliba. So yeah, an interesting battle come Sunday afternoon for sure. Now we are going to move into predictions, but Neil, I am aware that you're pressed for time. Are you good to go for predictions, or are you going to have to part ways at this point?
I'm going to say, can I give my prediction? Score prediction?
Absolutely, yes. So
I'm going to
go on.
I'm going to go with for my starting lineup, I'm going to go with, you have it on screen here. I see Zinchenko starting over Timber because it's just, I feel like Mikel has a preference in terms of him being a player in the squad. And as for our midfield is going to be key in this game. And I see him moving, as you have him there, Nketiah into the midfield, and at times having Partey alongside Jorginho in a double pivot. It depends on what side of the ball we're going to be playing. And we're going to be using our width and our pace to try to kill them off. And hopefully we do.
Perfect. And what is your score prediction for tomorrow? Not tomorrow, sorry, Sunday even.
Sunday, 3-1 to the Arsenal.
Going strong. I like it. Perfect. Okay, Chippy. I know I'm going to have to move some players around now because we spoke about it earlier with regards to your preferred or predicted starting lineup, should I say. Talk us through it. Why have you gone with these players?
Have a great one.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Come on, you Gunners. Let's go.
Thank you very much for coming along, Neil. Much appreciated.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, sorry. As I was saying, this is the 11 that you've gone with.
Possibly this is not what I would have gone with, but this is what I can see Arteta going with.
Right.
I could be a little bit up. My starting lineup would probably be a little bit more controversial.
Okay. So this is the lineup that you think Arteta will go with. So we'll entertain both. So why do you think Arteta will go with this starting lineup? And then we'll talk about what you would prefer to go with.
I think he'll go with what he knows. And I think at the moment I wouldn't have. We can talk about pace all you want, and I'm going to say this, and this will be controversial, but I wouldn't have Martinelli anywhere near the team at the minute. Since his injury, he has lost so much pace. All he ever does now, he does not want to beat a player. He cannot beat a player. For me, he wouldn't be out on the left. I might possibly, with the team I might have played, would have been pulling Trossard into where we've got Kai, putting Kai back up top, and I would play Sterling on the left.
So, like this?
Yeah, that's the one.
No changes elsewhere at the back or in midfield?
I think the two holding midfield players pick themselves because we just don't have anyone else fit, and you can't play Lewis Skelly or Nwaneri in a game like this. You just can't see it happening.
High stakes, no pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this back four pretty much picks itself at the moment. As Neil said, the only possible change that would come in there would be Zinchenko. But I like my left backs to be able to defend, and Zinchenko is not a great left. He's better left back than I ever was, but he's not a great left back.
Yeah, in these types of games as well, it's going to be a hostile atmosphere away from home. There are going to be occasions where we are going to have to defend for periods of the game. So yeah, I completely agree. Zinchenko, probably not the type of player you want in this fixture. I suppose my question here around your lineup, obviously this versus the one that you think Arteta will go with. What's your sort of reasoning for picking Sterling out wide versus maybe Trossard and bringing Trossard inside instead of going with someone else?
I think bringing Trossard inside, that Kai and Leo can switch backwards and forwards. They can actually switch backwards and forwards. So one of them can be pushing forward, and the other one's can drop back into that hole. And I think they can both do that role, and they can both be that false nine, which we like. Sterling for me is out wide. Maybe we didn't want him at Arsenal, in the summer. But he's not. He don't become a bad player overnight. He went from the best team, in the country, to the team that is in so much disarray. How is he ever going to settle? What has he had? He's been there a couple of years and he's had 5 managers.
Yeah, different systems, different tactics, different colleagues.
It's just absolutely ridiculous with it. I think he's got a bit of experience. He's got a lot of pace that he can use out wide, and I think that he can cut in and crack a shot with that right foot. We know that. He's done it often enough. But by the same token, he can go on the outside and pull a cross in with his left foot. So I'm not adverse to seeing Sterling start there and just having Trossard and that there. What you put on the screen there is not away from home.
Well, the one thing I will say about this suggestion is we have seen Arteta play Trossard in this 8 role, if you want to call it that, and then likewise we've seen King Kai play there as well at the beginning of last season, and we know that Arteta does like to experiment at times, maybe sometimes in the wrong games. We see it against Brighton, I think three seasons ago, where he played Saka at left back. We've seen Partey play at left back. Maybe he's learned from those experiments. We'll have to wait and see. But I do completely agree with you on the whole Sterling statement, because he seems really, 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 really confident. He seems really, really happy to be working with Arteta again. There's been a lot of conversation about that relationship in a lot of the interviews that he's done since joining Arsenal. And I think we've both seen the Arteta press conference earlier. He was questioned about Sterling and, his confidence. Is he going to start? Is he going to play some part in this game? Do you think that Sterling could potentially be a better option off the bench in this game as an impact player versus starting? I'm not saying either is right or wrong, just a observation.
For me personally, and it is just me personally, he's the best left-sided attacking player we've got at the club at the moment. I don't think there's anyone better than him to play out there. He's got bags of experience. He's still got a lot of pace. And unfortunately, at the moment, Martinelli just doesn't seem to have that pace for me. When I'm watching him week in, and the end of last season was the same. He didn't have the impact he should have done last season, because I think he's lost something after the last ankle injury, which he got the last game of the season before last against Brighton. He just doesn't look the same player for me at the moment.
No, and it's not helped his confidence either. That's continued to drop and drop and drop. So, losing that pace and then having the confidence knocked, it's a combination of things which haven't helped him. And then,
in all honesty, I could see him being sold next summer.
It's a possibility. It certainly is a possibility, and bringing in the likes of Sterling, who also plays in that role. I know that Trossard offers competition on the left-hand side, but he can also play up top and inside. Martinelli maybe doesn't play as many positions compared to some of the other players on the left-hand side. So, it's an interesting one to keep an eye on, to see how it develops throughout the season. And more interestingly, the number of different lineups potentially available for Sunday. We could probably sit here for the next 10, 15 minutes and discuss, other alternative variations of what we might see on Sunday. But enough of that for now. I'm going to press you before we end the show for a prediction on Sunday. How do you see the game finishing?
It's always a tough one, this one against Tottenham. First game I ever saw against Tottenham, this is just reminiscing a bit, but I was back in the first double season of 70-71. And we won that. And of course, my favourite game against Tottenham ever was Christmas 1978 when we won 5-0 at the Lane. I'd like to win 5-0 there, but in all honesty, I think it will be a very, very nervy 2-0.
Yeah, I went for 2-1. Just because of some of the reasons you mentioned earlier with regards to areas that they could potentially hurt us in that midfield. I do think there's no question marks over us defensively. I just think that maybe because there are a few players out injured and suspended, it's not our normal structure, that we could potentially concede a goal. But 2-0, I'll take that all day long. A clean sheet away from home in the North London derby, yes, please. So, okie dokie, that's going to about wrap things up for today's show. Do get your predictions down in the chat, both scores and your lineups even. It'd be good to have some debate in the comment section after the show. Thank you very much to everyone that has come along today. Do hit the like button if you haven't done so already. It lets me know that you like this type of content and that you would like to obviously see more moving forward. And if you are new around here as well, don't forget to smash that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of these shows moving forward, including your weekly Wednesday roundup of Arsenal news. And we will be live after the game on Sunday, hopefully with smiles on our faces, no VAR controversy, and 3 points in the bag. That would be a really, really nice place to be. Anything else to add, Chippy, before we shoot off?
No, not really. It's thanks for having us on.
No, thank you very much for sparing some of your time this evening. And as I say, hopefully come Sunday, we'll be all smiles. But let's wait and see. But for now, thank you very much for coming along. Take care and stay safe. And come on, you Gunners.